is often managed at a local level and indeed at a regional level. So there are many countries where, as a policy, it is devolved. And an example is Belgium, and so we're delighted to have Koen who is an MP from the Flemish Parliament in Belgium, and indeed we have a lot of regional representation in this network as well, which further to yesterday's sessions where we were talking about the importance of increasingly going more regional on more local in our analysis, it's very helpful to be able to have that view from you as well. Koen is the Vice President of the Education Committee of that Parliament. He also holds a Master's degree in Education Policy and is a former teacher of vocational training. So I think that equips you quite well to be able to comment as a practitioner and also from your political vantage point.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Leijser, to the whole presentation. And indeed, it's sometimes it's more interesting to know who is speaking than what's he saying. And I'm trying to do the both. Who's a former teacher, a researcher on educational sciences, but also a policymaker. And indeed, Belgium education does not exist. When you see in the tables of Pisa, Belgium's education, we don't have that. There's a Flemish education. It's completely independent from the Wallonia education, and it's completely independent from German-speaking education. So the PISA results, I'm always interesting how you are making a Belgium score. What's the maths that you are using to make one score for Belgium, for one country with different educational systems. But it's also interesting, and everybody of you, to see what are we doing, what are those other countries does. Why is Shanghai very high? Why is Finland are doing in that way? And the results of Belgium and also Flanders, we are very good. We are very good, and we can say, okay, everything's nice. We're going to sit, enjoy, and rest, but everything is okay. But everybody of you are thinking, yeah, it's quite good in our country, but we do also have to do some changes. And in Flanders, we have just a big agreement on education, a really big agreement. We are discussing about it since 2009, about what are we going to do. And we have chosen not to do a big structural changement. And there's a reason why. We have seen, and also in a report from McKinsey that says only 30% is on strictures, and 70% is what are you teaching, who is teaching, and how are you teaching. And that's, I think, a big issue. My colleague has already said the teachers, and also in the presentation, what does the teachers are doing, what's their education, and how do they look at science? Because when you have teachers who say science, yeah, it's just using a PC, just using a computer, and that's science, yeah, that's not science. Everybody has a smartphone. When it doesn't work, you say, hey, it doesn't work. But that's not science. Science is something else. One of the big issues in Flanders is also that a lot of people doesn't speak Dutch at home. And our educational system is in Dutch. And when you cannot understand what is going on in classroom, it's very difficult to also understand, to learn, and to comprehend. And that is one of the big issues that we are dealing with. Also because the second and the third generation of migrations, they are doing a lot more, less more, I say that, good than the first generation. So they're going backwards. Due to all kinds of euros we are dealing with, it's not going well. So we have taken 71 measurements, but not big structural measurements, but specific measurements to do something about our educational system and our results. Because we have two big goals. One, our best performing students, that group is minorizing. And the second thing is our group low performance is growing. That's our big issue in Flanders. So one of the first things is learning Dutch. That's one of the things we have now implemented. And how do we do it? In Flanders, we have pre-primary school. About 98% of the youngsters of 2.5 years going to pre-primary school in Flanders. But we are raising that group, the last 2%, will also be at school. That's one of the first things we do. The second one is to do science in primary schools. And now you will ask, Flanders, no science in primary schools. Yeah, there is science in primary schools, but it's hidden in another course. There is no course science in primary schools. So we are told we're going to make a separate course science. So pupils and teachers are seeing that's also in primary schools. Also in the first grade of secondary school, every student will have science. Every student. Vocational, other trainings, everyone will be that. The teachers, we have also been told, and also in Flanders. In teachers, when you say I'm going to study for a teacher, everybody is saying, oh, nice, a lot of vacation. Very well. You can combine with your household, with children, do the cooking. But it's also not the first educational choosing. It's not the first thing everybody wants to choose to study. It's a second, third. You have not passed engineering, not passed something else. So now I'll become a teacher. I can nothing else. That's a big issue in Flanders. Big issue. So we're having to 3 things in teacher education. The knowledge of what they are teaching, how they can teach, and how they can manage a class. And you have seen in the tables, Belgium, classroom size, average of 9 students in a classroom. So everybody of you is thinking, wow, 9 pupils in one class, it would be great to be a teacher. But that's not the reality. That's taken all the persons who are repaying in Flanders, and then taken all the students, and then you come to 9 students. But the average classroom in reality is about 24, 28 students. What are they doing all the rest? A big question. That's a good question. Something else. Some things are going very well. They are help the teachers. But other things we cannot say they are doing well. So that's another thing. I'm almost looking at the time. There's a very interesting table in the Pisa books. There are 2 big books of Pisa. And it's figure 2, 7.2, factors associated with science performance. And I will say, look at that table, because they're indicated that adaptive instruction and teach-directed instruction is much better for the science results than inquiry-based instruction. That's a very interesting table, but there's no discussion about it. It's in the second book. And I will say that's a very interesting table that we are going to look at in Flanders. And I have 3 things I will want to say, and then I will end. There's one big issue also in Flanders, it's teaching to the tests. There are lots of countries who have central exams. We don't have that. Because there's one of the big issues in Flanders, are the teacher then going to teach to the tests? And in Pisa it's also a methodological question, teaching to the test. You are getting high, is it because it's a good education, or because the educational system is teaching to the test of Pisa? That's an interesting question, methodological. Second one, we have changed the matter of the Pisa inquiry on PC. Before it was on paper, so it's also students who are not very well, is there an effect or is there no effect? And the last thing I want to say is, I have in my research that I've done before, copy educational systems. When you are parliaments, and also parliaments, you say, oh, wow, great, we copied that, and then everything goes very well. It never works, because every country, and specific in Belgium, every region has its own things, its own problems, its own goals. And that's the reason why we in Flanders, we have indicated 3 goals in education. Basic skills, it's the grade 2 of the Pisa results, attainment targets who we want from almost every students, and at the last ones, additional goals for our high performance to get them also in education and to elaborate their knowledge and capacity. Thank you for your education, for your attention, and I will look to the questions.
Thank you very much, and that is educative in itself. Very interesting comments that have been made there. There's a question certainly to